this panel was strategically placed to call your attention to the fact that all that glitters is not gold. And to, if you will, celebrate and explore resilience in the diamond landscape. There is no sector of, if you want to call it, this industry, this sphere of endeavor, that is not, if you will, requiring resilience as a strategy to go forward. And one of the things about each one of the panelists here is that they represent, or they champion, various approaches and or projects or specialties that actually are about that. And I thought that rather than going into the age-old, at this point, discussion, although it's definitely not as time-worn a conversation as the era that Antoinette cited, that it would be wonderful to have a group of people who can speak positively about things that are happening in this sector. And I want to say that I'm really delighted, and it's not in the brochure, we will update. That's one of the things about small batch printing. You update online and you reprint. Our moderator is Rebecca Boyajian from GIA, and Rebecca is sorry about that, guys, Senior Director of Jewelry Services at GIA. She has a number of signatures that come in different emails, but we all know her, if you will, as a glowing presence. So we're really delighted that she's not only going to be on a panel, but she's moderating this one. Virtually is Raj Mehta, who is coming to us from Antwerp. And he is in the process of launching, or has launched, a new initiative. He is CEO and Managing Director of Spectrum. I'm sorry, not quite getting that. Spectrum BV, is that? And then down the row, if you will, Mark Klein, who's Vice President of Julius Klein Diamonds. I think next to him is perhaps Jade. Sorry. The diminutive is often hidden, but is never undiscovered. And Jade is a fabulous, fabulous designer who has a new attitude about diamonds and who is a fellow New Yorker, which will come up when she talks about her work. Next to Jade, I believe, is Daniel Rose, Vice President of Diamond Sourcing at Signet. And who else is? Yes, Emmy Kondo. So Emmy has, again, we did not get the title quite right, so we apologize, but Emmy is here. She, basically her forte in the years that I have been in her penumbra has been strategic direction, and that is one of her focuses for the Natural Diamond Initiative at De Beers. And I think I've done it. So it's theirs, and, you know, remember, Venturi says, more is more, less is a bore. I leave you with that.
That's wonderful. Thank you so much, Lisa, and everyone. Good afternoon. As Lisa had mentioned, you know, we have 5 incredible thought leaders here in person and online to speak with you. And from what I think is exciting is various segments and arms of the industry, and they all come individually. Several of them I know very well, with a wealth of knowledge and experience that we can really dive into this topic and give you their perspective. So, you know, when I was thinking about resilience, and as Lisa and I were speaking about the upcoming conference, when we think about resilience in diamonds, although there have been serious challenges over the course of history, arguably we are going through some of the largest headwinds, be it geopolitical, governmental, the flooding of the industry with laboratory-grown diamonds. We really want to focus on, we know what the issues are, many of us, we've spent a lot of time discussing those, but where have we been resilient and where are we ready to move forward? And so each one of the panelists actually brought up some wonderful notes that I know that they will bring to you, but I really believe that we collectively have an opportunity to think about how we can help and discuss how we've been so resilient in the last couple years especially. So just to kind of kick us off, I wanted to, Emmy, down on the end, I wanted to open it up with you, and really if you could give us kind of an overview, and as Lisa had mentioned, with the strategic direction that you do for De Beers and specifically natural diamonds. Can you please give us an idea of like how you see natural diamonds bouncing back as of right now, from a bit of a tumultuous time, to say the least? And I'd love to hear from Emmy, and then if anyone else has any thoughts.
Of course. It has been a very difficult time for natural diamonds with the incursion of lab-grown diamonds. And I think particularly for De Beers, but many of the people in this room, we feel extremely obligated to turn this around because the livelihoods of so many people and nations depend on natural diamonds. And I think that the American consumer doesn't really realize how much is at stake in terms of, human dignity and survival when they turn to lab-grown diamonds. Something that we've done is we've really needed to, in order to be resilient, be the tree that bends with the wind. And what we have done is pivoted from the sort of 4Cs definition of color, because lab-grown has now made it possible for everybody for not very much money to have a 3-carat DEF oval on their finger that's blindingly white. And we're seeing people who are older generations who have perhaps smaller diamonds than their daughter or their daughter-in-law, less good quality, sort of rebelling against that. And also people who are very wealthy and who are spending money and don't want to be spending so much money on something that someone has the equivalent of. So what we've done is launched Desert Diamonds, and Desert Diamonds refers to diamonds that come from the earth. That's something that we've learned through focus groups and consumer research is very easy for consumers to understand. The term desert diamonds must mean that it's natural. And we're really celebrating the diversity of color that comes out of the ground in this sort of natural miracle from the earth, which might be anything from a warm white down into, deep brown tones. So in the sort of technical terminology, that's K through Z diamonds. And we've seen a real sort of fascination with this in culture. We saw Taylor Swift, who could buy anything in the world that she wanted, buy a ring, or not buy, have her fiance give her, what is technically a desert diamond ring. It's in brown tones, and we're just seeing sort of culture pick up on this. I think we're at a moment where, diversity is really celebrated, different skin tones are really celebrated, different colors are really celebrated, and it's all like kind of zeitgeisty and something we were able to pick up on and talk about in diamonds, and it's something that people really understand and are grabbing onto. We've seen a 20% shift upwards in sales of K through Z diamonds in Q1 of this year. And in Q4 it was also high, and we see that momentum continuing. So we believe we have something that is starting to turn the tide, as well as the fact that lab-grown diamonds prices are coming down so dramatically that the sense of value or worth doesn't feel like it's there anymore for the consumer. We're hoping that this is the thing that really turns the tide and starts to return equity and, awareness to natural diamonds.
Anyone else?
I could follow up on that, especially being from a retailer. And I think just going back a little further, there's a lot of complacency, or there was a lot of complacency in the retail world. And we sort of took it for granted that people were going to come in, buy diamonds. And then we introduced lab diamonds, and people were buying them, and obviously there's a high margin with that. But I think a few years ago, we understood that we had to basically bifurcate the two, right? Explain and retell the story. And like to Emmy, as Emmy's mentioned, we worked with De Beers to try to come up with a story that we could first teach our salespeople, as you mentioned before. It's really about educating the salespeople, right? They weren't educated. And so specifically at Jared, we came up with what we call the Storied program, which is a Botswana only, so Botswana mined, Botswana cut diamond. And it reinvigorated our sales force, and it also, and we can see the effects because our sales of natural diamonds have gone up probably, and I won't give you exact numbers because I'm limited on that, but they've gone up tremendously, drastically. And so we've turned the tide back, especially in engagement rings, towards natural diamonds. And again, it is about telling that story, and that's what we need to do as an industry. We just rested on our laurels, and we didn't do much to really push that story of what diamonds do, not only for the person, how old they are, and how old diamonds are, and how precious they are, and how rare they are, but what they do for the communities at large. And so we're doing that. And finally, as far as the darker diamonds, we were limited at, we limited ourselves to eye, and we've opened that up in conjunction actually with De Beers, and we've seen a tremendous response for that because diamonds are beautiful, whichever color they are, especially natural diamonds. And so, yeah, I'm hopeful.
Daniel, I just wanted to ask, and in giving us kind of an overview, thank you. Are you seeing that there's been a positive response from the consumer from the natural diamond side?
Yeah, tremendously, and not only in bridal where we're pushing it, but we're now pushing more back into the fashion side as well. Okay. There have been a lot of headwinds, especially with gold, but prices on smaller diamonds have gone down drastically as well. And people do come in, and if they're buying into the story of natural diamonds, then they want to buy into it, for a full scope of their purchases.
Thank you. Mark, I was just in thinking about Julius Klein and the generational business, and Jade, you as well. And over those generations, you've gone through recessions, you've gone through wars, you've gone through any number of challenges. What are you really seeing as, with the, of course, we have changing trends, and as Daniel had mentioned, there are different waves of things that are affecting our market right now, and the consumer. But what are you seeing as far as like the biggest lesson coming out of all of this? There's some things we can't change, like the geopolitical and governmental, where we work on those in different areas. But how have you been resilient and been able to kind of match these headwinds?
Good question. There's always challenges. Again, when I came in the industry, I'm 15 years now myself personally, and multi-generational. I heard from the generation prior, good things, bad things, all the things that were challenges. And even just in the short, what I consider a short term within this industry, when I came in, everyone was, will people buy a diamond online? Then will millennials buy diamonds? Then why are we marketing to men to buy for women? There's women self-purchase. There seems to be time seems to move faster than it used to, but there always seems to be some new, I don't want to use the word trend, or challenge that we have. And I think when we talk about resilience, it's how do we adapt to those challenges. I think resilience is adaptation. And again, adaptation to me is not changing who you are at its core as a company, as a person, as a whether you're a wholesaler or retailer. And I'm going to lean it onto Jade a little bit because you were asking the question to her as well. I know Jade and her family a long time, and I think one of the amazing things about her and her brand is she's fashion design jewelry, but she's diamond background, and she does a very good job at fusing the core of her brand and her brand recognition, the values that she offers to her customer, whether you're at a retail level, designer level, wholesale level. I know what we try to do as a company as well is if we're specializing in not everyday purchase diamonds, which would be, let's say, a chain retailer, more specialty items. How can I better offer that? What are the challenges that I'm facing? I think people are jumping a lot and trying to be everything to everyone. They're trying to encompass everything. And I think that's resilience. If I put up, fences everywhere and try to cover every ground, I think the best adapters within the industry and within many industries is doing what you do and doing it well and best. So adapting in that way and being resilient to where your true core essence stays the same and a new way to do it. Whether that means if you're a price point oriented company, you have to find new ways to be creative and create price. If you're logistics and you're trying to figure out new ways to distribute and reach consumers or advertising, that's the way. If there's one of a kind pieces that make even more, I think lean into that more and figure out a way to connect that into things. I think that's the resilience, and you can follow up on that. I gave you a little.
Yeah, Jade, I was going to say from your purview, Mark spoke about adaptation. What have you seen over the last 25 years of, the real adaptability of not only designers like yourself, but the market in order to kind of satisfy some of these needs?
Yeah, absolutely. So first of all, I wish that I could say that my approach to natural diamonds was strategic, but most of it was really fear. I was like, stay in your lane, do what you know natural diamonds. And I saw the prices of lab grown when they first came out. And, everyone was talking about lab grown as being tethered to natural diamond prices. And I was hearing one price, and then the price got lower, and then it got lower. And I was like, well, I know how to buy a 1 carat natural round stone, so I'll just keep doing that. And in the end, I think it did benefit me. I mean, it was purely like survival for me. But what I have seen that has changed so dramatically in the years that I've started my brand, which will be 15 years, I was a diamond buyer for 10 years before that, is that there were so many questions about statistics. It got to the point where I felt like selling a diamond to someone was like selling them a car. It was like, what's the sticker on the car? And now we don't really engage in that. People come in. First of all, I obviously am at a benefit that I have a collection of jewelry, so people often come in because they want a certain style of ring, and then we're adapting the right stone to fit in that ring or that necklace or whatever it is that we're building. And so I am looking for the right stone at the right price point or the right color, and I'm chasing a certain something, and it's very rarely that I'm chasing a GVS2 2.2 to 2.5 carat. That language doesn't come up anymore. And in the same vein, it sort of surprises me. In the past, I tried to move away from round diamonds in larger diamonds because I thought lab grown is here, nobody's going to want that. But as it turns out, classics still stay classic, and people still want it. And in the past year, I've really leaned into designing with larger round stones again. And my audience, and yes, I acknowledge my audience is very narrow, but it doesn't matter because to Mark's point, I don't need to be everything to everyone. I only need to continue to keep my head down and grow in the space that I'm in. And in my space, my client still appreciates a beautifully set 2 carat natural round diamond in a jade trowel alchemy setting or whatever it is. I also just, one more thing I have to say. I recently had been cleaning out my attic and I found all these papers of my grandfather's. He kept track of all of the boxes that he manufactured in a notebook by hand, and he tracked every single piece of rough from what it was to the finished piece to the toppy to what the yield was on every single piece by hand in his handwriting.
Wow.
He used to call himself the king of the 4-grainer, the 1 carat round stone. And so to me, that is where I came from, and I'll always make sure to keep that as my true north in what I do.
Wow, thank you so much for sharing that. That's incredible about your
so
grandfather. Such a wonderful family history you have. Raj, I wanted to bring you in on the conversation a little bit. We could speak a lot about resilience. I know that all the panelists have a lot of thoughts, but specifically, Raj, when we were reading over the notes for the panel, I noticed that you specifically have kind of a new venture model that you may want to tell us about, and that just really applies to the whole resilience theme. Would you mind sharing?
Sure, thank you everyone. So basically, I've always had this dream about minus market. We often say minus two fingers, but we are a B2B company, so we sell to jewelers and to maisons in Europe as well. And the needs of these clients are very, very strict and very tough to match. And I think that we have found a formula for that. So we're building this entire supply chain system right now. And quite, I would say we are one of the first midstream companies to be able to do that. And that's the advantage of spec Sargent's forte in mining and the rough distribution and rough sourcing, as well as ours is in the understanding of the clients and the distribution of the needs of the downstream clients. So we've put that together and we're building a solid supply chain here. And that's our answer to the market.
Thank you so much. Any thoughts from the panel on Raj's notes and what he's building specifically?
I can chime in. Why not? I like the idea of what you're talking about, the simplifying a lot of the streamlining from mine to market, and I'm going to give Antoinette another shout out, not that she needs any, but I think we've known each other quite a while, but I think a lot of the things we spoke about and what ended, Lisa said, ended the previous panel and moved into this one was that topic of let's assume education or transparency or consumer information. Everyone always, from AI, everyone now asks AI a question, whether it's ChatGPT, and everyone goes, oh, the customers are so smart, they're so smart, they're so smart. That's what I hear all the time. And I remember years ago, somebody gave me a little tidbit. There was I don't know if people remember, Sims was like a chain in Long Island, and it said, for an educated consumer. And the idea was that, it was like an off Fifth or like a Nordstrom rack, and it was something that don't pay, again, it was a sales pitch and a catchphrase, but the consumers were educated that if they wait till the end of the season, they can get something on sale, right? Or pay a better price or value. So that was a price point advertisement. But to me, it was always, we say the consumers today are smart because they have information, but somebody said, but they're not educated, right? So I always say when people walk into your store or walk into your jewelry design store or are considering buying a natural diamond, what education are we giving them as a retailer or salesperson? They're coming, I always say, if somebody says the challenge 15 years ago was, how do I compete? If a customer walks into a store, they saw a certificate online, and they go, here's a cert, can you get me this? And why is your price more? And everyone would go crazy, and how do you defend your stone and your price? So the other part was educating them. They're coming into your store, you're the professional, right? You're the one who's wearing the white lab coat, right, at some level. And that same education needs to be streamlined. I think a lot of statistics we have can be skewed many different ways. Emily said there's a lot of statistics out there. Lab-grown diamonds prices raised, we're going to 50%, 100%. Yeah, to go from 0 to 100, it's easy to go 100% increase. There was none being sold before 10 years ago on a mass production. So the numbers seem extreme, but if you look at the numbers in the way, and a lot of, on all the levels, from the mining levels and the labor that goes into it, and we're talking about human rights, all these things, most people do not understand. We've been pushing, as Dana said, for a long time, the wrong parts to try to make and we became very complacent of it's easy to sell certain things and categories because we almost, to a point, almost commoditize what we're selling. We're on like autopilot. And now that we have a new challenge of lab-grown diamonds, but somebody said, I don't know what it for, something along the lines of imitation is the highest form of flattery. Don't tell me that the diamonds don't have some sort of value, whether you consider it historic or emotional or powerful or whatever it is. If they're copying something and they're using the same sales tactics, obviously there is some sort of value there. So that's what we think we need to focus on. We learned in our company is, why do we buy diamonds? It's something that's beautiful. Not because it's colorless, or not because it's flawless, or not because it's brown or pink or blue or green. It's beautiful. Whatever that definition means to that consumer shopper, whatever that definition means to Jade, how she's going to create a design, she's making something beautiful that she thinks somebody will appreciate for whatever reason. So I think streamlining that also from mine to market, the education aspect, and the points of what we're actually really selling. At the end of the day, we're selling a luxury product. We're not curing cancer, right? We're not doing anything crazy scientific, but what is the same thing? The resilience of the core of what we're actually doing. We're delivering something to the client. That's it. We have to really focus on what it is we're delivering as a retailer, as a designer, as a mining company, as a diamond producer, as a high-end manufacturer wants to streamline. He wants to deliver a streamlined service direct. I want to deliver beautiful diamonds. She wants to deliver beautiful jewelry, beautiful service, and at a great price you can get anywhere for anyone, right? That's kind of, how do we connect all those dots so we can have one really resilient, I guess, message towards the consumer? I think that's the streamline that we're talking about.
Yeah, it's interesting because I think that, we talk about how the consumer is smarter than ever. It may not be always the case, but the consumer has more information than ever. So that phrase I can stand behind. But just for the, kind of what, dovetailing off of what you had shared, Mark, and for the rest of the panel, and specifically Dan, I'd be interested in how you feel about this. But like, when we have consumers out there now comparing, thousands of diamonds online, I mean, they're looking at probably more of their parameters, as Jade had said, like very specific, coming with very specific parameters when they're looking online. But in minutes, they can see all kinds of information and all kinds of different diamonds. How do you think that companies can really not only diversify from others, but also remain relevant when that information is everywhere for the consumer?
So it's interesting, and I was going to mention this before. I remember 15 years ago, a friend of mine, the person who actually founded James Allen, and we ended up buying Blue Nile, told me with great authority that all diamonds in 15 years were going to be sold online. That brick and mortars, so all the stores are going to close. There was no need for them. And 15 years later, the opposite is true. I mean, the numbers haven't really shifted much online. And I think at the end of the day, people want to buy from somebody they can trust, somebody they can see, and they want to be educated. To Mark's point, or to everybody's point, it's like they want to come in and they want to hear the story because they're spending a lot of money on something that's important and relevant to them for that moment in time. And I think it is part of the process, and that's what we're seeing. So I think I'm hearing less and less, especially in natural, where my stores will call up and say, oh, somebody came from down the block and they found the same diamond at this price. I only hear that in lab. I don't hear that in natural because they're telling the story, and especially if it's a story of mine to market, if there's a full story behind it, a blockchain associated, environmental story, whatever it is, it resonates with the customers because they're spending a lot of money on an important purchase. And so they don't want to just go online the same, it's the same reason that brands like Hermes and LVMH work, right? They're telling a story and they're a strong brand. And that's what we need to do to succeed.
It's interesting. Yeah, like really leveraging your brand, creating a brand identity, right? Just kind of moving off of that and real, but still on the consumer track. Emmy, I'd like.
Sorry, Jade.
Oh, I'm sorry, Jade.
No,
Yes,
I'm just thinking out loud, and I will say also that maybe a benefit of this lab-grown diamond conversation that's come up is that we are changing the message, articulating our message, and companies like Spectrum and De Beers, who's working on desert diamonds, it's making us have to be more responsible and more cognizant of what our message is and how we're telling that message and the social responsibility that we do have. And we are under a microscope now, and maybe that's not the worst thing. I like that that's the story that I get to tell now. It feels like an authentic story. It doesn't feel like a brand message that I have to manufacture. It's a very natural story to tell.
An honest story.
Yeah.
An honest story, yeah, authentic. I mean, kind of dovetailing off of that, when you think about you building the strategy with De Beers, and what would you say is the biggest misconception out there for consumers and what they think about natural diamonds, and how is that affecting your work and what you plan?
That's an interesting question. I think that the biggest misconception is that natural diamonds are unattainable, that it's something, that you have to necessarily really stretch for. It's a very democratized product. What we call the run of mine, what comes out of the ground. There's certainly gigantic, amazing, shocking stones, but there's also a lot of stuff that's in between. It's smaller, it's different colors, and it's still beautiful. And when we look at our consumer now, We talk a lot about the K-shaped economy and this sort of sector of society that's having less and less power to spend, and this sector that's having more and more power to spend. And like, it's not a secret that the value in the diamond industry is going up because of average price going up, not because of the amount of sales. Now, the amount of sales, that volume level is like life or death for Dan and Signet, because they're like selling to ordinary people. And so we need those people to understand that this is a somewhat democratic product. It's a luxury at whatever you buy, at whatever price you buy it, but there are offerings, you know, from low hundreds of dollars up to millions of dollars. And we just want people to understand that this is something that they can participate in. It's not something that they're locked out of.
That's a really great point. Mark, do you have any thoughts on that?
May I?
Oh, go ahead, Raj, please.
Yes, something. I feel misconceptions are also due to lack of communication, of course, and marketing. If you see over the years, marketing has been running behind in this trade, in the entire industry. And that's one thing that we need to enforce and push stronger. And marketing comes with, of course, marketing, branding, but there's a communication part which has to be very, very detailed and very clear communications. And clear channels of communications. We should not be overlapping with different. If I take the supply chain and I take the miners, I take the manufacturers, then the wholesalers, the retailers. I mean, if the communication is more or less aligned in the same way, then the message is much stronger and much more powerful. Often, the messages are quite different, and I think the consumers are not, we confuse the consumers rather than actually giving them a clear message, and that's key today in the industry to keep the value of natural diamonds strong. That's one thing, but it bring inspiration and bring the demand back to natural diamonds. I don't think that lab-grown was the challenge for the natural diamond industry. It was the natural diamond industry the challenge for natural diamond industry. That's what I feel. And I feel that if I look at COVID, which is now 5 years ago, but if you went through the demand that spiked during during and after COVID in the jewelry industry was enormous and was incredible. And still today, many of the retailers, when they post the results, and if the results are usually positive in the jewelry sector, and if it is even big groups who have different businesses within their entire portfolio, and that means if they're in the spirits business or in the fashion industry or the jewelry industry, the jewelry sector still does very well. So I think the communication, if even enforced even much stronger, we will own the customer base even better. And it has to be reliable information.
Reliable information.
And that's what I feel, yeah. So that we are lacking marketing and communication very strongly.
Yeah. You know, and Mark, I know you've said it in the past that, you know, we think we're in a diamond crisis, but maybe we're more in a communication crisis. Do you have any thoughts kind of coming off of that?
That's exactly what he's just saying. Is
Yeah.
And what Emmy said is, I grew up in the industry, in natural industry, there was always a diamond for everyone. Meaning, maybe we lost that a little bit in certain sectors, meaning whatever there was, there's something within your budget, within your style, within your shape. There's so many different colors, there's so many different shapes, qualities for everyone. So that means whether you're, and to me, how we always presented that with the retailers we worked with or the messaging to the consumer was, whether we're cutting a 30-pointer that's $300 or whether we're cutting a 30-carater that's $30 million, it goes through the same process. We still got to dig it out of the ground. We still get the same amount of hands and eyes touch it, the same cutting process, analysis, and polishing. And whether Jade's setting a 30-pointer or a 30, it goes to the same thing. You need to come up with a design for it. Each one is so unique and distinct in its own way. I think that should be the general overall communications, like what Emmy said, is there is a natural diamond out there for everybody. How we do that after is dependent on the brands. I use this example, and what Daniel said before, what came to mind is, do we lose sight of what we are. There's many retailers I know over COVID, they had too many locations, so they closed it down. They were able and just offer more services out of one location. Or then they said is everything was moving online and away from stores, but then we leaned back into stores. So we created some sort of fusion over the time. COVID really sped that up, where we started to wake up and said we need to offer more services. I saw right by Vegas, actually, the week we went into Vegas, everyone was talking about all the diamond news, and for some reason on my Instagram feed that popped up, because I'm into cars, that Ferrari was launching an electric car. I don't know if anyone saw that. And the day after they announced it, their stock fell 7 or 8%, and then within a week, like 12%. I was shocked, because I'm saying, what is Ferrari doing? First of all, Porsche, if anyone follows cars, did it a year or two ago, and their stock tanked, and now they're scratching the whole EV project. Now, whether you're pro-EV or not, you could ask the same question to Ferrari 20 years ago. How come you don't make minivans? There's plenty of people in America that need to drive a minivan. Why don't you make an SUV? Because that wasn't their identity, right? So again, it's the same type of thing, whether you're a retail store, whether you're a chain retail store, whether you're an independent designer. I don't think going away from your overall message, I'm into natural diamonds, I'm into beauty, I'm into art, I'm selling X, and these are all the ways I can do it. I can do it online, I can do it in store, I can do it in person. But don't leave that message. If you start veering off your path and then your communications are all off, I think for a lot of the industry, if we're just selling a piece of paper, it doesn't matter if you buy it online, it doesn't matter if you buy it in the store, it doesn't matter who you're buying it from or what you're buying, we're just selling something. So to your point, the communication of that messaging is so important. If somebody wants to buy a Ferrari, wants to buy a fast car, or they want that engine to rev as loud as they can, that's what that person wants. Somebody who wants to buy a minivan, they need multiple passengers in soccer games, right? So there's something, and there's a designer in a store for all the consumers. I think we need, as an industry, stick to that smart communication is, we're here for you, we're here for everybody. LVMH has so many different brands, and each one touches on a drop of a different style, and a drop of a different curated demographic that they're hitting.
I just want to follow up, and you're making a great point, and just the numbers that I've seen are stark. As an industry, we spend less than 5%, I've seen it as little as 2% on marketing. That's 2% of annual revenue. LVMH spends close to 15%, right? It's telling your story, and we just don't do that enough. We relied on De Beers for so many years. A Diamond is Forever was the greatest campaign ever, and I think it ended maybe 20 years ago, and we're still going through with the fumes of it. And we need to put money back into telling our story.
Diamonds are forever, marketing campaigns aren't.
I guess so.
I just want to add one thing to Mark and Raj, which is that, yes, the message remains the same. We have the same basic symbolism, but the way we get it out needs to change. And this industry is very old-fashioned. It's very generational. We got our lunch eaten by lab-grown people funded by VCs who knew how to use digital channels, who knew how to use all these new kinds of technology to target people very specifically with very specific messages. And we are playing catch up on that. We have to do that. And to the AI and LLM model, I mean, someone made a point earlier about on a different topic, sustainability, you have to engage, you can't just disengage. If we want information that's accurate about natural diamonds in AI, in LLMs, we need to be putting it out there proactively so that the consumer is getting, a fair story from many sources.
Yeah, thank you so much. So we're approaching the end of this panel, but there are two questions I thought were really poignant that I'd like you to answer, one of the two. Depending, and I can restate them if needed. But one is, you really would like to end on a positive note. So the first is, what about the diamond industry keeps you optimistic? Or please share, when you hear the word resilience, what's the first thing that comes to mind? So.
Start with the
Sorry,
can you repeat the first question again?
Yeah, so the first question is, what about the diamond industry keeps you optimistic?
I find it it's connected to your second question, quite frankly. The industry is absolutely resilient. It's a fantastic industry. If we see the challenges that the industry went through over the last 2 years at least, we have seen nobody really going down. It's been giving answers to every challenge that it has come through. Whether it's tariffs in the United States, whether it is the wars that we are facing around us, whether it was COVID, whether it was pricing, whether it was lab grown, everything. So I find the industry fascinating, that's one thing. I love the multicultural fact of the industry, so I really enjoy that part very much. Very passionate about this industry. And overall, I just enjoy selling natural diamonds. And I feel that I'm selling something with life. And I'm not just saying this because I'm in this business. It's truly something that I really believe in, because in these kind of times to start a new joint venture, usually a lot of people thought that I was a little, I would say, crazy. But at the same time, I find it that there is huge opportunity in this. And there is an opportunity to give a true and reliable story to the clients and the clients to the consumer. So I really believe in this industry, and the fact that if you see from upstream again down to downstream, the interest and the way families and everybody around you look for diamonds, and I'm from Indian origin, so diamonds and jewelry are part of our culture, and I see that growing in a huge way, at least in India and many other places. And I'm just very passionate and very close to this industry. So that's one thing that I love about it.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. Does anyone want to speak to, a word, what's the word resilience, and what's the first thing that comes to mind?
I'm going to curtail what you said. I mean, you said it without saying it in one line, so I was thinking about it as I go. But what keeps me optimistic about the industry is its resilience, meaning it's merging those two questions into one, and that's the topic of here. I see from just personal family, my grandfather, what he went through resilient, coming to America with nothing and creating a company. And Ambi said one thing, there's a lot of family industries. That just shows the resilience and the belief that people have. No one's going, oh, come into the business, dear son, if you don't think it's good, you don't believe in it, right? You want to, and that definitely limits us in some ways in seeing outside of our own, blinders at some point. We need to be able to communicate better and adapt and modernize a little bit better. But that shows the resiliency. I find that most, consumers don't see the resilience. We think, let's say De Beers, 125 years ago, or maybe 130 today, I don't know the exact year, no one wanted a diamond until De Beers came up with this brilliant campaign. Lack of just basic ignorance and understanding. Diamonds are recorded back hundreds of years before. So in India, there's biblical time, whatever it is, all the times people had, the uses might have changed, the way they were distributed may have changed, but that desirability is always there. The resilience of wanting a diamond has always been around. I don't know why. I don't know why. You could give 100 reasons. I don't think that's relevant. And I think the same thing, when you have a disruptor like lab-grown come in, they're coming off of that same, why do people want lab-grown diamonds? They want it because they want a natural, and that's for whatever reason they decide, whether it's a financial reason or some other type of reason that might come into play. But the industry itself, I'm optimistic, is because it's resilient. It's ironically strange how metaphorical it is to the actual product that we're selling, how resilient an actual diamond is, right? You see diamonds from hundreds of years ago and resurface, go into museums, go and get stolen from museums. It's like this allure of hundreds of years that somehow came into like one ChatGPT prompt of, should I buy a diamond? And then like sum up 3,000 years of diamond history into that, like, thank you. So I think that's what keeps me optimistic, is something that was always wanted should always continue to be wanted. How we work it is what changes only.
So really you're talking about how there's always been, humanity has always had the pursuance of beautiful objects, really, and that ties into diamonds. Any last thoughts? We're coming to the end of the conclusion of the panel. Any last thoughts?
Well, I was just going to follow up. I mean, I think
Yes.
it's the impact of the people and the industry, not just on the communities in those specific countries, but on the communities at large, and it even goes down to our stores, all the retail stores, and what impact they have. And at the end of the day, we're selling a beautiful product, and I think that we can't lose sight of that. But for me, I'm most hopeful because of the people, because it's just, there's so many layers, And there's so much uniqueness, and I just, if we work well together, we can bring out that beauty for our customers.
I love it. That's a wonderful way to end. Thank you so much, everyone, and thank you to the panelists. Thank you, Raj, for dialing in.